Good afternoon. It's a bright sunny day. As you can tell, I'm working here from home today, actually on vacation, but just wanted to share a little encouragement with you from Psalm 20, continue on our series here. So, Psalm 20, not a very long psalm, just 9 verses, but it begins like this. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and give you support from Zion. May he remember all your offerings and regard with favor your burnt sacrifices. May he grant you your heart's desire and fulfill all your plans. May we shout for joy over your salvation, and in the name of our God set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. Now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with the saving might of his right hand. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. They collapse and fall, but we rise and stand up. O Lord, save the King. May he answer us when we call. Now, there's not a whole lot of love for the royal family or kings in the United States, but I think there's still a bit of a fascination with the royal family. And as we look at Psalm 20, we notice there are a lot of royal themes. The people of Israel certainly would have been keen, and you might even say obsessed with royalty. After all, they were a monarchy. The king ruled, and in this case, and when Psalm 20 is written, it's about David or by David. And they had this keen interest in understanding and following and keeping up with David because as went the king, so went the people. You can imagine David riding out to battle, and there would have been a great expectation, a great concern, a great interest by all the people as to how the king fared in his battles. If he was successful, they would have been successful. Throughout Psalm 20, you'll notice there's a good deal of emphasis in verse 1 and verse 9, also in verse 6, with God answering their prayers for the king. And so I think we can divide, as other commentators have, this psalm into three sections. First of all, verses 1 through 5, the prayers of the people. Secondly, verses 6, 7, and 8 are the king's response to these prayers. And then finally, a great summation in verse 9. But you notice how the people begin addressing God in their prayer in verse 1. May the name of the God of Jacob protect you. Now there's some concern. There's a concern for the welfare of their king, and there's concern for the nation, obviously, as well, its well-being. But notice the address uh, to the God of Jacob. Oftentimes it's helpful to think back in times of trouble to where God has delivered you before, whether it's in your own life personally or in the lives of God's people. Both are apropos and helpful. They're looking back here to David, or excuse me, to Jacob. God has rescued Jacob, they're saying, time and time again. God led this deceiver and changed and transformed him and made him come alive and put to death sin in his own life. What a wonderful encouragement that is, that if God does this for his servant Jacob, will he not surely do it for you as well? Verse 2 then sort of shows where the people are addressing their prayers to Zion, we're told, that holy city. Now, there's some debate. Is this the heavenly Zion, heaven itself, or is it Jerusalem? John Calvin actually says it's both and I like that that there's an earthly Zion At this point, the temple there, God's house in Israel, or I guess it would have been the tabernacle in David's time, because the first temple wasn't built until David died and Solomon came to the throne. But the temple and the tabernacle would have represented God's presence here on earth. God's heavenly tabernacle is his actual presence, his actual place of residence, but he resides here in his representative tabernacle as well. So you see that this is where their help is going to come from. They're looking to the Lord to deliver them and to deliver their king. Notice verse 3, they talk about sacrifices. How are they approaching God? It's through what we would call the ordinary means. Animal sacrifice, as prescribed in the book of Leviticus and elsewhere in the Old Testament, was somewhat standard, commonplace. They would have sacrificed throughout the year, and the priests would have sacrificed daily on behalf of the people, and showing them God's atonement for them and for their sins. But you notice that it's done in this very ordinary way through animal sacrifice. Verse 4, you see the request of the people, verses 4 and 5. Very interesting, actually. May God grant the king his heart's desire and fulfill all your plans. It's a dangerous prayer to pray today, isn't it? May God give our leaders their heart's desires. I don't know. I don't know if I could pray that today. But this is not talking about any earthly leaders. This is King David, and as you see God using him and working in his life, and there's a certain trust that builds, that the people are trusting in their leaders. And then verse 5, a wonderful verse. May we shout for joy over your salvation, and in the name of our God set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions or requests. What a happy day that would have been, to be able to celebrate the king's victory in battle. That would have meant further freedom, not having to worry about other rogue kingdoms coming and invading your land and stealing your stuff and killing your friends. Uh, uh, Obviously points us forward to a day that we've been promised when we will experience this as well. We just have to wait a little bit longer, but the victory that Jesus has accomplished over sin, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, will lead to and does lead to a day that he has promised in the future, where he will come back and make all things right. He returns as a conquering king this time, and we will live in peace, free from the fears of plague and pestilence and enemy invasion and rogue leaders and bad government and all of that. What a glorious day that will be. It will be a little while longer that we have to wait, but still, we can live in anticipation of that great day and should live in anticipation of that wonderful day. And then really, I think the heart of Psalm 20 is in verse 6. He says, now I know that the Lord saves, or actually the ESV doesn't quite translate it as strongly as I would like. Actually, the Hebrew says, now I know that the Lord has saved his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven. There's that answer verb again with the saving might of his right hand. God has saved. He has done it all. Past tense. The King David is speaking here, even though he has not been victorious yet, he is more than confident that he will be victorious in this battle. How does he know that? Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. But I think the question for us today is, can we still pray Psalm 20? As Christians in 2020, can we still pray this way? And the answer, of course, is absolutely we can, and we should, and we will. But there's a certain caveat here, a wonderful caveat, if you will. Allow me this illustration I got from Dale Ralph Davis that I think explains it somewhat well. He tells about the great singer in the turn of the century, early 1900s, named Marian Anderson. Anderson was one of the first famous black singers in the United States, and apparently in the 1910s, on Easter Day, I think it was 1912, that she sang a number of songs, gave a concert at the on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and 75,000 people turned out for that. She gained widespread fame and success throughout the first half of the century. But apparently, as Davis tells it, a reporter once asked her and said, "When did you know, or when did it all change for you that you actually were famous?" Thinking that she would point to this concert or that, she said, "Actually, the the time it all sort of came home and it all changed for me," she said, "was when I was able to go home to Philadelphia and tell my mother that she no longer had to wash other people's clothes as a job. That was the day that it all turned around for her and it all started to hit home." The day for us as Christians, I think, when it all hits home is when we realize the work that Jesus has accomplished on our behalf on the cross. It all turns around at that point, at that day in our lives. You see, we no longer, as the Old Testament people would have prayed Psalm 20, we don't have to pray like they did in hopeful expectation that the king will be victorious, because we pray knowing that our king, the true king, the real David, the fulfillment of David, Jesse's rod, we know that Jesus has been victorious already. That his work on the cross accomplished it all and purchased your salvation and mine full and free. We can't add anything to that. We can't take anything away from the salvation that he has earned for us. So we can say with all the confidence in the world that he has conquered. And so we pray Psalm 20 from this perspective. We pray knowing that Jesus has won, not asking him to win, but we pray because he has won. And what a wonderful thing that is. What a wonderful confidence that is, that we can know this with all our hearts. Verse 6, again, the certainty that it has already happened. It's reminiscent a little bit of Romans 8 30, where Paul says we are more than conquerors, that we have conquered past tense. Why? Because of our union to Christ, that we are united to him. And his victory is our victory. His victory over sin is our victory. So, what do you do with that? Well, there's just one point of application I want to get through with you this afternoon. It comes in verse 7. Uh, David says, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." A chariot was a feared thing in David's time. Iron vehicles pulled by teams of horses. One man would drive, the other would fire arrows from the back, and you could absolutely ravage a battlefield if you had enough of these chariots. But yet, as any serious student of the Bible knows, chariots sometimes fail. Why do they fail? Well, ultimately because they're made with human hands. That's the simple answer. Uh, Same is true with us in our world here today. We didn't it's not that the US didn't have airplanes in Pearl Harbor. They were all there. In fact, they were conveniently located, isolated together to prevent against an invasion. It's not as though the Germans didn't have tanks when they invaded the USSR. It was that they ran into difficulty in the winter when temperatures plunged below 32 degrees Fahrenheit and gasoline froze. It's time and time again there are examples of this. It's what are you trusting in ultimately? And it's not to say that we shouldn't have military forces and whatnot. I'm glad and proud of what we do have as Americans. But here's the question that really cuts deep is what are you putting your trust in, Christian? Are you trusting in those things made with human hands, your own accomplishments, your own abilities, your own opportunities, or are you trusting in the Lord? It's the only thing that can save you from hell and eternal damnation is those things that were not made with human hands. That is Jesus Christ and his work upon the cross. It's ultimately him that saves us from sin and hell and destruction. But it's also him that saves us from our own selves, from being as bad as we could be. It's him that saves us from the powers of darkness in this world. So look to him, look to the true King, and be saved. That's all we have time for today, but I hope that helps encourage you this week. Be safe and be blessed, and we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.